Gambling has always fascinated smart people who want to figure out how it works, but no challenge seemed more absurd than predicting the outcomes of horse races with their countless variables and millions of possible combinations. Yet, a young dreamer from Pittsburgh achieved the unimaginable. He created a flawless mathematical algorithm that allowed him to win nearly $1 billion on the tracks in Hong Kong. His name is Bill Benter, but how the hell did he do it? One November night, all of Hong Kong was focused on Happy Valley Racecourse. It was a big deal because there was a huge prize on the line, the largest ever offered there, 100 million Hong Kong dollars, about 13 million US dollars back then, awaited whoever could correctly guess an almost impossible bet called the Triple Trio. The challenge was to pick the top 3 horses in any order across 3 different races. With over 10 million possible combinations, the odds were heavily stacked against them. Yet, nearly 1 million people tried their luck that night, about 1 in 7 residents of the city. Excited crowds filled the brightly lit stands. Horse racing was a serious affair in Hong Kong. Locals didn't see betting as just a game. When the bell rang for the final race, the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers. And here we go with the last leg of the Triple Trio. 2 horses pulled ahead from the pack as they neared the finish line in an exciting sprint. The commentator, with a voice full of excitement, shouted that Mascot Treasure was in the lead by a length, but Bobo Duck was making a strong comeback. In a thrilling twist, Bobo Duck surged past Mascot Treasure in the final meters. Mascot tried a last-ditch counterattack, but it wasn't enough. Bobo Duck crossed the finish line first, followed by Mascot Treasure, with Frat Rat completing the podium. But what nobody expected at that moment was that across the street and 27 floors above, 2 Americans were quietly watching the race from a luxurious office. Bill Benter and his partner, Paul Coladonato, had their eyes glued to 3 screens showing a grid of bets their algorithm had placed, 51,381 different combinations. The men watched as a program sifted through losing bets one by one, leaving only 36 winning lines on the screen. 35 had correctly guessed 2 of the 3 races, winning smaller consolation prizes, but 1 line had correctly predicted all 9 positions of the winning trio. It wasn't immediately clear how much they had won until 8 minutes later when the official payout appeared on TV. Benter and Coladonato had won that massive jackpot of $16 million. That moment marked the end of a journey that Benter had started decades earlier as a young dreamer in Pittsburgh, a path that led him to crack the codes of one of the most complex and challenging games around, horse racing, a journey that turned him into a legend by winning nearly $1 billion using mathematical principles like never before. But how did Benter achieve what seemed impossible? It all began with a book. Benter grew up in a peaceful suburb of Pittsburgh called Pleasant Hills. He was a diligent student and an Eagle Scout who initially studied physics in college. But in 1979, at the age of 22, he made a bold decision to leave school and hop on a Greyhound bus headed for Las Vegas. His motivation? A book titled Beat the Dealer, written by math professor Edward Thorpe in 1962. In it, Thorpe outlined a strategy to overcome the casino's advantage in blackjack by counting cards. You might already know about this somewhat controversial strategy, but for those who don't, let me break it down. The idea is quite straightforward. You mentally keep track of the high cards that have been played, and based on that, you increase your bets when the odds suggest that more high cards are likely to be dealt. Simple, right? It takes practice and discipline, but with these, even a slight edge can lead to significant profits. For Benter, a shy young man with a knack for mathematics, the book was a heavenly revelation. So without much hesitation, he pursued the American dream, trying his luck in Las Vegas. Of course, his arrival wasn't glamorous at all. No, he worked for $3 an hour at a 7-Eleven and took his wages to the city's budget casinos. He didn't mind the roughness. He loved seeing theory in action and the colorful characters of the gambling world. It was during this time that he met Alan Woods, the leader of an Australian card counting team. That meeting changed his life forever. Benter joined the team, and soon he was playing blackjack in Las Vegas and Monte Carlo, living the high life, drinking martinis with beautiful women. His winnings quickly grew to about $80,000 a year. That became his whole world. But as they say, what goes up must come down. After a couple years on the job, Benter and his teammates ended up on the infamous Griffin Book, a blacklist that casinos used to spot card counters. Remember, this was completely illegal in gambling. Unable to continue playing in Las Vegas, they needed a new game. Woods knew there was a big betting scene in Asia, especially under Hong Kong's powerful jockey club. So in 1985, Benter flew to the bustling city with his old IBM computers, ready to tackle a new challenge. Benter and Woods rented a small apartment and a rundown office filled with racing newspapers. Benter's new goal was to develop a program that could predict horse race results. He studied statistical methods, wrote code, and tracked many factors that could affect races, like wind speed, diet, and rest days for the horses. He was passionate about mathematical accuracy and believed strongly that statistics, formulas, and numbers held the key, and he turned out to be right. Well, those algorithms proved him right. In his first year back in Hong Kong in 1985, Benter won about $600,000. He eventually said goodbye to Woods and then hired a key employee named Paul Coladonato. He also assembled a rotating team of consultants, independent players, journalists, analysts, and programmers. As the betting volume increased, he recruited English-speaking Filipinos to relay bets over the phone to the jockey club at a rate of 8 per minute. It was a full-scale operation aimed at profiting from horse racing. By the 1990-1991 season, he added another factor to his calculations. He began incorporating the public betting odds released by the jockey club. While creating his own odds had been profitable, he discovered that using these public figures as a starting point and then refining them with his patented algorithm was much more lucrative and saved a significant amount of time. The result? Approximately $3 million in profits. It was clear evidence that his system was effective. Benter had achieved something unprecedented, a kind of quantitative hedge fund for horse racing that used probabilistic models to outperform the market. The only other similar operation was probably his former partner Woods's, who used the source code Benter had originally written, but that didn't matter anymore. The system worked. Benter's profits continued to grow year after year. By 1994-95, Woods had earned $10 million and bought a Rolls-Royce he never drove. Meanwhile, Benter invested in a stake in a French vineyard. But keeping their success under wraps was impossible. They both attracted employees and hangers-on, some of whom moved between Benter's and Woods' team. Unlike bettors of their caliber, success didn't blind Benter. Over time, he gained a reputation as a recognized master in that secretive world. Woods even publicly admitted that his rival's model was superior. However, the two never resolved their differences and went a decade without speaking until 1997. What happened that year? Well, something external to them, to be fair. A long shadow fell over Hong Kong with the imminent return of the territory to China after 156 years of British colonial rule. Many locals feared it would mean the end of capitalism, but China assured them that their traditions, including horse racing, would continue. But for Benter, there was another worry. A month before Hong Kong's handover to China, his team won a massive prize of over $50 million in the Triple Trio. Normally, big winners were celebrated on camera, but this time, no one wanted to announce that the winner was an American algorithm. It wasn't exactly illegal, but if regular bettors found out that computer nerds from abroad were making millions, they might stop betting altogether. The Jockey Club couldn't risk that public embarrassment and put a halt to Benter, revoking his phone betting privileges. So our friend flew back to Las Vegas to think about his next move. He could still place bets, but not over the phone. What next? Well, he set up a kind of high-tech control center. Every weekend, he established a temporary operations hub in a hotel near the racetrack. Just before each race, he received the betting lines, and his computers printed coded tickets. Then they raced against time to manually input those tickets into terminals before betting closed, carrying up to $1 million to wager. It was risky, exhausting, and complex, but they kept betting and winning almost as profitably as before. As the new millennium approached, Benter continued refining his betting model, which expanded to track over 120 factors per horse. He carefully analyzed every detail, from rest periods to changes in trainers, to maximize his statistical advantage. His life became more focused on the game with a simple and austere lifestyle. He even thought about retiring and returning to the United States after a remarkable career. However, in November 2001, he decided to make one last major bet of 51,381 combinations in the triple trio, which earned him a whopping $16 million. Surprisingly, he chose not to claim the prize. Instead, he sent an anonymous letter to the Jockey Club explaining his decision to donate the money to charity. The gesture deeply moved the betting house. Without prior notice, the club lifted the ban on telephone betting and allowed bets to be placed over the internet. In 2001, Benter decided to return to Pittsburgh. He didn't want to spend his whole life in Hong Kong. 9 years later, Benter married Vivian Fung, whom he met at the Hong Kong Rotary Club. The couple has a son, and Benter seems happy in every way. As an active philanthropist, he has donated millions to health, education, and the arts. How much money does he actually have? The truth is, it's unknown. Edward Thorpe, whose book Beat the Dealer inspired Benter, claims he runs $1 billion global business betting on horse races. However, Benter himself admits he's not a billionaire, although his regular attendance at galas and opera nights may suggest otherwise. Unlike his past partners, Benter remains active in the game, placing bets at venues worldwide. He monitors how odds change seconds before a race, as all computer bettors make their moves simultaneously, continuously refining his model to ensure profits. Yet it only scratches the surface of the legacy of this mathematical genius who achieved the seemingly impossible. He devised an algorithm that couldn't lose on the track. He applied mathematical principles like no one before and conquered one of the last bastions where raw talent alone seemed insufficient. Now, with $1 billion to his name, Bill Benter comfortably resides in his Pittsburgh home. There, beyond his winnings, lies the story of a young dreamer from Pittsburgh who once boarded a bus with the bold ambition to outwit the casinos. His journey led him to decode Las Vegas and then conquer the bustling racetracks of Hong Kong, a mathematical prodigy who became the phantom haunting the racetracks and eventually emerged as the revered master to a new generation of high-tech gamblers. This is the remarkable tale of Bill Benter, the horse racing genius. If you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. See you there.